welcome to Used Bike Heaven, the show that takes the worry out of finding the right second-hand bike for you. Each week we give one lucky viewer the chance to test ride 3 bikes that'll fit their lifestyle, needs and most importantly their pocket. And just look what we have this week. A whole plethora of dream machines, from the devastatingly beautiful Ducati 748 through to the cool Kawasaki ZX9 and finally onto the amazing Aprilia Millie R. So who's the lucky man that's going to get to ride all these bikes? Well, let's go and meet him, shall we? This is Gary Harker. He's 38 and from Suffolk. He's a sales manager and currently owns a GSXR 600, but he wants a bigger bike with a bit more torque and a bit more grunt. He has a budget of £6,500. To help Gary in this muddled up medley of second-hand bikes is our very own Dr. Rod to offer his advice.
Thanks, Fran. Remember when you were a kid and you really wanted the toy that everyone else had? You cried and screamed and huffed and puffed until Mum and Dad finally bought you what you wanted, only to find it was about as exciting as watching an episode of Crossroads. It wasn't what you thought it was after all. Well, all that's due to a lack of information, which isn't something that I suffer from. I'll be giving Gary all the stats, facts and figures he needs to make his right choice of bike, so I'll be seeing you later. Back to you, Fran.
Thanks, Rod. Once Gary's picked his favourite from our 3 suggestions, he'll take on those tough-as-nails sales assistants to get his dream bike down to his dream price. And our panel of top experts will be on hand to help him negotiate the best deal.
That's right, Fran. I'm just wondering if Gary fancies swapping places with us 2 this week, because he's 3 very nice bikes there.
Yeah, he's got the best deal out of this.
Right,
we have to sit in here and he gets to ride those bikes. Anyway, we'll be on hand to make sure that he doesn't let his heart rule his head with some calming advice.
Hi, Gary.
Hi there.
Are you all right?
Very well, thank you.
Good, good. So, Gary, you're looking for a bigger bike with a bit more torque and a bit more grunt for about £6,500.
That's correct.
Well, boy, are you in luck. Just indulge yourself in this little lineup of eye candy that we've got for you. First up is the oh-so-gorgeous Ducati 748, perhaps the prettiest thing ever to come from Italy. Powered by a 748cc 90-degree V-twin engine, the 748 will produce 95 brake horsepower at 11,000 RPM. Coupled with the bike's class-leading handling, and you have one very serious piece of tarmac-munching kit indeed. On the twisties, the bike is untouchable. On the track, it's unbeatable, and on the road, it's unmistakable. Slightly easier to live with than its bigger brother, the 998, the 748 Ducati has always given the rider much greater balance between performance and handling. But will it be Gary's cup of cappuccino? This Ducati is a 2002 bike and is way over Gary's budget at £7,695. Right then, next up is our offering from the Far East, the Kawasaki ZX9R. This Kawasaki Ninja is powered by an 899cc inline-4 engine, capable of producing 150 brake horsepower at 11,000 RPM, making this green meanie the most powerful bike in today's show. Weighing in at just under 190 kilos, the ZX9 has always been in the middle of the 1000cc Supersport mixer by combining blisteringly quick performance with sure-footed handling both on and off the track. Add to this its cheaper insurance premiums than its rivals, allied with its ability to tour continents, and the ZX9 becomes a very inviting prospect indeed. This ZX9 is only a 2002 bike with just over 3,000 miles and competitively priced at $5,695. And last but by no means least, we come to the truly breathtaking Aprilia Millie R. Essentially a track machine, the Millie R takes no prisoners. To ride this bike, you have to be experienced and 100% committed. If the 748's the Italian supermodel, then surely this must be the Italian bare-knuckle fighting champion. Blurbing away underneath the rider is a 60-degree V-twin monster-driven engine that'll produce 130 brake horsepower at 11,000 RPM, more than enough to turn planet Earth into a fuzzy mess. Arguably the most focused motorbike in today's lineup, the Millie R knows exactly what it is, a seriously quick machine that needs to be ridden hard, in the right conditions of course. This Millie R is a 2000 bike, it's very highly spec'd and has covered 7,000 miles. It's priced at $6,995, over Gary's budget, but can he be swayed by the Millie experience? Talk schmalk. Gary, you've come here to buy a bike. So shall we get the ball rolling?
Yes, please.
Well, first up is the Ducati 748. What do you think to this?
Well, it's what I expect from a Ducati. Lovely lines, lovely colour, Sounds superb. It's a sexy machine, really.
It is really, isn't it? We just need to be knowing about the performance, don't we?
Yes.
So do you want to get your helmet on and let us know?
Lovely.
Okay.
Riding it around the town, I found the steering to be a little bit on the heavy side and the motor was a bit twitchy, but overall it was an absolutely superb bike. The Ducati was a little bit like my GSXR, very low down, and on a straight I found it to be superb. It was behind the screen, you could really give it some welly, and it handled superb at high speeds. The Ducati on these twisty roads, I think it's the best bike I've ever rode. It handles superb. It made me feel so confident. Nice and slim, and when I come to the bends and I needed to give it a little bit of brake, it was absolutely superb. It's probably the best balanced bike I've ever had. Love this bike.
Unless you've been living on the planet Blongo for the past year, you'll be well aware of the new Super Sport Ducatis, the 749 and the 999. With their introduction, you can find yourself some bargain 748s and 998s, like our one. If, like Gary, you're interested in buying a second-hand Ducati, then shop around and get the best deal. Believe me, they're out there, and if they're not, haggle. So, Gary, we're going to give each bike a points out of 10 pre-purchase category. What do you score the 748?
Right, Fran, let's start off with a Ducati. For style, I'm going to give this 10 out of 10. I think the looks alone say it all, really. I don't need to say no more on that. On to performance. Now, for performance, I'm going to give this 7 out of 10. It wasn't necessarily the fastest by far, but it was still a good bike. Moving on to ride, I'm going to give this 9 out of 10. I love the lay-down feel on a bike like this, and this has got it. Build, from what I've seen on a model that's only a year old, I'm going to give it 9. It felt very solid and looked good. Practicality, I've got to go down a little bit on this and give it an 8. It's not necessarily the best bike for riding around town, but I want to buy it for fun. Price, it's the dearest of the lot, 7,700 nearly, but I think it's well worth it, and I'm going to give it 8 out of 10.
Well, Gary, that was the stunning 748. We're now over to the Kawasaki ZX9R. What do you think of this?
A friend of mine's got a ZX9 and they're not short of power,
Yeah.
but I think the shape's just starting to look a little bit dated now, and I don't get the excitement from this as I do from the Ducati, just by looking at it.
Yeah, we could put it as a classic. But don't judge a book by its cover.
No.
Because we need to know what you think to the power and the performance, and you may fall in love with it. So
Yep.
get your helmet on and let us know.
Cheers.
Okay.
My first impressions of the ZX9 are it's a little bit dated in the looks, but it feels nice when you're sitting on it, more of an upright sort of position. Nice and comfortable, really. Riding the ZX9 round town, it's quite nice and light, really. Nice and manoeuvrable. And you can ride it nice and slowly as well. Power's nice and smooth on it, so you can let on and let off as you want. Nice bike for riding around this town. Now I'm out on the twisties on this bike. The bike really does come into its own. It's much better than I expected, this bike. The handling's good, the power's smooth. I can go in and out of the bends really nice. Got to be careful on the power on this bike though. It's got a lot more than the 600. Overall, this is a really good bike, the ZX9. Much better than I expected.
Like all super sports bikes, the ZX9 is constantly being updated with new styling cues and performance tweaks on every new model. With this in mind, the second-hand prices are very reasonable indeed. This ZX9 cost nearly £2,500 less than a brand spanking new one. What a bargain! So how does the Kawasaki compare with the 748? Gary, what do you score it?
Right, Fran, the Kawasaki next, the ZX9. For style, I'm going to give this a 6. I think it's a little bit too much like what I've already got. There's no real character on this like the others, so I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. Performance, it's got the performance there. Got to give it an 8 out of 10. It's a little bit faster than Ducati without a doubt. It's nice and smooth. Ride, I'm going to give this 8 out of 10. It's very smooth, but a bit too easy for me, and I felt you didn't really get what I got from the Ducati. Build quality, I've got to give this the same as a Ducati, 9 out of 10. Felt really solid. Practicality, it's got to be the best. Because it's smooth, because it's easy, 9 out of 10. And the price, well, I can't give it 10 out of 10, but 9 out of 10. 5,700 and you've got a lot there.
Well, that's it for part one. Join us after the break when we'll see Gary riding the Aprilia Millie R, making his final choice and then haggling for that magic price on his favourite bike. See you in 2. Welcome back to Used Bike Heaven. This week we're with Gary from Suffolk, who's looking for a super sports bike with a hefty amount of grunt. So far Gary's ridden and scored the Ducati 748 and the Kawasaki ZX9R. Next up is the Aprilia Millie R. Gary, what do you think to this?
It looks a monster.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah. Unlike the Ducati, which is nice and sleek.
Well, it's nice and sexy, and this is more like the Beast, but it has got some nice lines to it. It's got some nice shapes, especially at the back. I like the back.
Yeah, it's a pretty good looking bike, let's face it. Not too dated for you then?
No, not at all.
Well, we need to know about the performance. So if you get your helmet on, you can let us know what you think.
Lovely.
Okay.
When I got on this bike, my first impressions are it's a big, heavy bike. And I think once I started going around the town at slow speeds, I found that it was heavy. It's not very good at slow speeds. It's too torquey an engine, I think. It's not a very easy bike to ride for someone who's new to riding. Now I'm on to the twisters again. The bike is a lot better, but it's still too much power for me, and it feels much too heavy going through these bends. I'm sure it's a smooth power, but for someone like me, I just cannot get the hang of this. It's a big, heavy bike, good brakes. Sure, it's balanced well, but I think it's more for the track than to get around the twisters. On the S-bend, I find it's quite difficult to sling from one side to the other. The 600 is much lighter and the power a little bit easier to control. I don't like the bike at these speeds running around the town. It's a big engine, it's a heavy bike. It's not the best for riding around the town, it's certainly not for novices.
A new Millie R cost £10,500, but they did change the model in 2001, so if you want a second-hand one, shop around. This is a 2000 bike and costs $6,995, which sounds like a good deal to me. Now, the standard Millie R is a very high-spec bike, so you don't have to spend a fortune on extras. But how does it compare to the ZX9 and the 748? Gary, how do you score it?
Right, Fran, last but not least, the Aprilia Millie R. For style out of 10, I've got to give this an 8. It does look nice. Big, bulky, but nice. Performance, well, it's a Millie R. I've got to give it 8 out of 10. A lot of power, a lot of torque there. Ride, for me personally, I'm going to give this 6 out of 10. It felt a little bit too heavy on the bends. It just did not feel quite right for me. Perhaps it's because I'm not a good enough rider for this bike. Build quality, wasn't so impressed with this. 7 out of 10. Didn't quite have the same solidness as the other two bikes. Practicality, well, really, because of the ride, I've got to give this 7 out of 10. Wasn't really the sort of bike that is very practical to ride, really, and I think you've got to be very experienced. Price, £7,000. It's quite a lot of money, and for me personally, I think it's too much. 7 out of 10.
So, Gary, on the overall scoreboard, the 748 wins. But before you make your final decision, we're going to go to our very own Dr. Rod, who's going to give you a recap on each bike and tell you the pros and cons of used bike ownership. Okay?
The Aprilia hasn't been around as long and doesn't have quite the same pedigree as a 748, meaning the designers didn't have the same baggage to deal with when they first broke out the pencils and rulers. In many ways, it's the most uncompromising of the three, and the engine is a big, brutish lump. For serious use only, the Millie R is perhaps just a little too focused for most road riders. Compared to the other two bikes, the poor Ninja has a little bit of a bargain basement feel. The ZX9 isn't a bad bike, but it's never quite matched the performance standards of rivals like the Fireblade, and its 4-cylinder engine makes power in a smooth rush that may feel a little bland compared to the raw delivery of the Italian V-twins. But it won't embarrass you in company, it will withstand huge amounts of abuse, and you can pick one up for a bargain price. As a fast road bike, the 748 V-twin is happiest on tracks and fast sweeping A roads and won't appreciate being run down to the local shops for a packet of fags. but it does score very high on grin factor, and that alone is what has turned Ducatis into iconic bikes to own. The 748 arguably has the best balance of power, performance and handling of any Ducati. But do be aware that buying a Ducati is rather like entering into a serious long-term relationship. Think very carefully about things like servicing and spares prices, and check the service history of the bike before committing yourself. Have a look for things like playing the swing arm bearings too, and watch for any sign of bodged electrics. Rattles from the clutch can usually be safely ignored. They do actually all sound like that. But by sports bike standards, Ducatis aren't expensive to run.
So Gary, have Rod's words of wisdom changed your mind at all? Put me out of my misery, what's it going to be?
It's going to be the Ducati.
Why?
It's everything I imagined about a Ducati and more.
Well, you better get off and bag that bike then, hadn't you? And don't forget, Stephen Paul will be on hand to give you any pointers should those assistants start to bully you.
Great,
Right.
thanks.
Isn't that right, boys?
That's right, Fran. I'm just a bit worried, about this 748.
I think he's got a bit carried away with
It's
himself.
like sat on that, isn't it? It's like sat on a plank.
Well, it's a completely different kettle of pesque, isn't it?
It's
To
probably
use-
the best one of the
biscuit,
three.
Italian.
The most enjoyable one of the three to test ride.
Yeah, exactly.
But
well
to live,
spotted.
So Gary's picked the Ducati. Is that a good price for that bike?
Well, why not live a little, eh?
And it's
For
over.
once in your
It's
life.
over his budget.
It's way over
He's
his
going to do
budget.
some serious bargaining here now, isn't he?
Oh, aye.
But he's good. He's confident. I think he'll do well.
I do.
Hi, Ian.
Gary,
All right.
how you doing?
Very well, thanks.
How's it going?
Yeah, I like them all. They're all nice bikes.
Yeah.
As I thought, I do like the Ducati, without a doubt, and I would like to get the bike, but obviously I want to talk about how I'm going to get a good deal.
Right. Well, at least you agreed on a bike, and I think you made a good choice with the Ducati. They really are superb.
They are. Well spotted. They're brilliant bikes.
So what kind of deal were you looking for?
Well, you've seen my GSXR.
Yeah.
I spent a lot of money on it, and obviously I've got to satisfy the fact that my wife doesn't think I'm spending too much. The bike was more than what I was intending to spend. I
Yeah.
wanted to try and keep to a £6,000, but obviously to get the bike I want, I appreciate I'm going to have to spend a bit more now. I want to try and get about 5 for mine.
No, you want to get 5, not about
Yeah.
5.
No, don't say I want to get about. Say I want 5, or else, I'm sorry, it just can't happen.
Right.
So, September last year registered, new. I've spent a lot of money on it, as I said, with the Acropovics and some body features and stuff. And I think about £5,000 for mine is what I'd like to try and do.
Say over. You can always come down. You can't go up, can you?
That's right,
You're never
yeah.
ever going to
No.
go up, but you can always come down.
Okay. Well, we all want the best price for our bike, don't we? I mean, you've had a look at our bike. It's a nice, late, low mileage
Yeah.
bike. And I've had a look at your bike, and I agree. It's a nice bike. Probably a little bit up on the miles. You do ride it, which is probably nice to see. And I'm prepared to offer you 4,650 for it.
Oh, no.
It's not enough, Gary. Tell him you want more. You want more, Gary?
Don't
yeah,
smile.
you do need more.
£5,000.
I need more.
Dear.
I mean, I really am stretching myself. No, I am stretching myself to go to that price anyway. I've not just got to try and convince you to give me the right price. I've had to do the same sort of battle at home with my wife, and I really do need to try and get a little bit more for mine. And I really do want to try and go for the 5.
I mean, what's the very least you would take for this bike to help me out?
What? 5?
5, told you.
Say 5.
Well, all right, come down a bit. 49.50.
Well, I want 5. The servicing on that Ducati is going to cost me a lot more than what I was anticipating.
Well spotted. That was a good one
That's
there,
a good
wasn't
one.
it? Yeah, you're going to
He's
get
gotta
the
get some money.
servicing.
Of course
I'm going to buy
he is,
some
yeah.
loud pipes and carbon wheels. And
I want you to give me as much as you can. I want the bike, so that side of it. But I now need you to give me the deal. You're going to get the servicing for the bike.
Yeah.
So, we'll keep that part. So you're going to get something afterwards as well.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, the bike will be fully prepared before it goes out. The bike will be clean, it will want for nothing. I mean, if I could stretch to 4,750 for your bike, would that be enough?
4,850.
he's good though. He's persistent.
He
Isn't
is good. He's good. He knows he's got a nice bike. He knows his
He
bike
does.
is worth that.
You can
That
tell
is it.
You can tell it's tight when we're arguing about
Yeah.
£100, can't you?
Yeah, I mean, I know mine's got high mileage, but I've put a lot of stuff on that. It's, the alternative is I take a little bit off and try and sell it and put the original stuff back on. But I mean, I think that bike will be easy for you to sell with what it's got on now. I've got the original can, obviously, with it, so I think, You say 4,850 and we can sort of patch our hands and do the deal.
As I like you. As I like you. You want 4,850. I'm at 4,750. If we meet halfway and say 4,800, will that be fair?
All right. Done.
You've bought yourself a nice bike.
Cheers, thank you very much.
It's fair. We went from 46.50 original offer. He wanted 5. He's come up.
They did a
200.
deal.
They
That's
did
the
met
way
in
it
the middle.
works in the real world.
He did well there. He knows he's got a nice bike. It's worth that. He did very well there.
It's not like buying a car, though, isn't it? It's not. A Ducati 748 is not something that you absolutely need. It's
No,
a
it's not.
beautiful toy.
That's
So
all it
it's
is.
really easy to let your heart rule your head, isn't
Of course it is, yeah, of course it is. But I say he's got a nice bike, he doesn't need it, but he did really well there. He knew the score, he knew what his own bike was worth. He's done a bit of homework first, probably had a walk around the showroom, seen something similar to his,
Yeah.
up at, 62 or something stupid. So he knows there's a lot of money
Yeah,
in it
but
for
when
the
you
dealer.
trade a bike, you've always got to remember that the dealer's then got to sell it. And he
Exactly.
wants to make a profit.
Easy for him to sell
The
though, that
days
one.
of taking bikes like that on and then trading it off at a loss are gone. It's a hard world out there.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But he was almost there,
He
wasn't he?
did well. I just still think he's going to have a very sore bottom.
So, did you get the deal you wanted?
Yep, Paul and Steve were great and I've gone for the Ducati.
Brilliant. Tell me what happened.
Well, I wanted 5 for mine and I got 4,800, but I got my bike.
Brilliant. Bit of bartering there. So, we're going to have a look at it.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Well, that's it for this week's show. Join us next week for some more Used Bike Heaven. See you then. Come on then.